Welcome to the Boomer Briefing Podcast, where we will help you solve a critical business problem or issue in 20 minutes or less. Hi, I'm Sandra Wiley. I'm the president of BoomerConsulting, and today I am joined by Jim Boomer, our CEO, and we will be discussing some of the trends that you probably heard earlier in our podcast if you've been listening for a while. And we're going to kind of recap those today, talk about them a little bit more, and then just take a look ahead at 2024. So, Jim, welcome.
Well, thanks for having me here.
And I wanted to ask you today, we talked about 5 trends for leadership earlier in the year. And I wondered if you could just recap those for us a little bit and talk a little bit about where you see those trends going.
All right, you bet. I mean, and we get together every year and do this collaboratively. And then we mid-year kind of check in to see if things have changed. But for the most part, the trends are still holding strong with some nuances that we'll talk of kind of where things have changed and where they're headed. But the first one, inspire with a vision. I don't think that this is anything new, but it's more important than ever that we as leaders become compelling storytellers and we are able to paint a vision, not just give business performance numbers like that gets to a certain level of excitement.
Yeah.
But it's not what really deep down drives us. And we have to recognize all of us are different and our motivators are different. So as leaders, we have to think about the what's in it for me and answering the why questions to different people that are part of our team. That's different levels. And so it does really take a lot more attention to understanding your team, what motivates them. But first and foremost, your firm needs to have that vision. You can't share something that you don't have.
Yep.
And so if you haven't sat down with your ownership group, your leadership group, and said, where do we want to be in 3, 5, 10 years, and paint that picture, your team needs to know that. So not only should you have the vision, you need to communicate it. So I mean, that's the first big one to motivate your team, you have to be a compelling storyteller. So
I agree.
See this?
I agree. I hear that all the time, just like you do. What I oftentimes hear is, even from really great firms, I have heard great firm leaders say, I've got it right here, right? And you're like, okay, but did everybody play a part in making that vision? Did they all have a part in really diving in and making that vision real? And I think that's an important part of that, creating the vision. And I agree with you. It's been around for years. We've talked about it for literally years, but it's even more important now than ever. So I think that, I think you're absolutely right, but don't hold it in. Share it with everybody in your firm. So I agree.
Yeah, that buy-in piece of it is huge.
Absolutely.
And that doesn't happen without the communication that we both talked about. So,
absolutely.
So I'll move on to our second trend, which is pretty closely related with that vision, but culture is huge. And culture isn't something you just overnight go, I want it to be completely different. A lot of it's organic and it builds over time. But you need to step back and reflect and really document and educate and have conversations around what does it mean to be a team member of BoomerConsulting or insert your firm's name. And really lay that out and ask your team, ask your staff, like how do they define it, and that will help you kind of solidify that. And so you got to get very clear on what's the culture, and that's where this cultural intelligence is. And it's not about just talking the talk. We as leaders have to walk the walk too. So when you think about core values, you think about some of the non-negotiables you have in your organization, your top level leadership better make sure that they're behaving in a way that's consistent with that, because everybody's watching.
Yeah.
And so you really need to set the tone at the top. We hear that all the time, but in terms of culture, it's huge. Yeah. And I think I heard Gary say this first, but we've started all saying it is a great culture beats a great strategy any day.
Any day.
Yeah.
Yep.
I mean, we all strive to have a great culture with a great strategy. That's the winning formula.
That's the formula, right? Yeah.
But if you got to choose one to focus on, choose to have that strong, compelling culture.
Yeah.
Because if you don't have that and you have an amazing strategy, you're still sledding uphill.
I agree.
Yeah.
I agree. And one of the things that I have learned along the way, and I don't know that if you'd asked me this 20 years ago that I would have said this, but don't be afraid to know that your culture could shift or change. I think, some people out there are still trying to hold on to the culture they had 20, 30, 40 years ago. And the truth is our world has shifted and everything's changed, and we have to change along with that. That doesn't mean you have to get rid of everything, because I think a lot of our culture that we started with years ago is still in place today, but we have also shifted a bit, and I think that has made us better. So I think that's an important part of really thinking about culture, and I also really think that you're going to use that culture and what you develop together as a team to recruit, to retain, to build your strategy, to build your strategic plan. Almost everything you do in your firm will come back to center, which is culture. So
Yeah.
I think that's an important part too.
Yeah, and so moving on to the third trend, and this one I'm excited about because I watch this happening more and more in firms, and the momentum is growing, but that's to get serious about innovation.
Yeah.
And when we say the word innovation, it encapsulates a lot,
Yeah.
but we all often go right to technology.
Yep.
And so my first word of advice is when you think about innovation, don't look at it as, oh, this is something we just give to our IT team and they're going to innovate for us. You've got to you need to have a structure, a process for going through it, have a task force. I would say get your functional leaders engaged, because innovation plays, yes, in the technology area.
Yep.
It plays in the talent area. It plays in leadership. It plays in process, and it plays in growth. And so you need all those perspectives coming together, and your operational leaders and service line leaders are seeing it day to day, and they can bring the ideas in. The other thing I think we get hung up on is when we hear innovation, it's like I invented something new that nobody had. It can be incremental innovation that together, if you do a whole bunch of small things, can have exponential impact. And so we really do. We need to start with naming the who, not who's going to come up with all the innovation, but who's going to first get the task force that will build the process.
Yep.
And all that. Last thing I'll say, and then I'd love to hear what your thoughts on this, Sandra, are. Also keep in mind, innovation needs to be fun. So make sure you're not just turning it into this process that feels like it's a hurdle and nothing ever comes out as a yes and gets done. You have to reward new ideas coming in. Reward people that have great ideas that may have failed, but then you learned from that and you tweak it and you go forward and you're going to have an even better idea. We have to celebrate innovation as much as we do manage it.
Absolutely. And you just made a comment that was really good, because John Maxwell said in one of his books, fail forward. Innovation is all about, it's not just about creating this amazing thing that's going to change the world. It's about creating something that failed, but yet it gave you just a spark of something that can make you better. So it's all about that incremental innovation and growth. Mm-hmm. And I think that's super important. I also really love the idea of, somebody asked me one time, but what if we get so many ideas? Like, what if we build this committee and we get so many ideas that there's no way we can implement them all? Won't that just shut everything down? No, it will not. As long as reward for the ideas, you implement some of them, and then you say to some of them, good idea, but I think we can build on it. So you can move forward with that. So I think that is exactly, I love the act of innovation, even if it's not perfect the first time out of the gate.
Yeah. Well, that problem, that concern, I'd rather have that problem than nothing, and we say stay stale.
I agree.
Yeah, and everybody leapfrogs us. So it is our role as leaders to prioritize and give guidance, but going back to the vision and having that compelling story, that will help you prioritize what gets the resources. And it becomes a resource management, not an idea generation and innovation generation problem. So I'd much rather have too many that I can't execute all of them than none at all.
That's
So,
nothing. Yep.
Yeah. All right. So the all-important team is number 4. So investing in your team. Now, again, this isn't something that just came on the scene in 2023, but I think really what's become more important, and especially as we're in kind of a talent war and people are seeing poaching going on, is the worry has reared its head of what if I invest all this money in Sandra Wiley and then Sandra Wiley turns around and leaves. And we've said it so many times, but we have to understand that if we stop investing in our people and developing them, we've just assured they're going to leave.
That's right.
Except for the ones we don't want.
Except the ones we don't want to leave.
They're going to stick around, and mediocrity will breed mediocrity, and that will impact your culture.
Yep.
That will impact strategy, all kinds of things. So really taking that multiplier mindset where you develop your people, prepare them for their next position in their career, as if, who cares whether it's at BoomerConsulting or somewhere else?
Yep.
Let's develop them so they could go out and find another amazing opportunity. If you do that, loyalty is built, appreciation is built, the likelihood that people will stay goes up, and even if they don't, the likelihood that good people will boomerang back to you goes way up too.
Way up, absolutely. And the more people you have that you're working with, the more important this one becomes. And the first thing people think of when we talk about invest in your team, you can just see it's almost like the little dollar sign starts spinning in their head. That is not really what we're talking about. I mean, of course we want you to be, at market or even a little above market, that'd be great. But we're talking about training and learning. We're talking about giving them stretch projects to do. It's investing in them as a human being and letting them be what they want to be. And you started down that road of, what if you invest in them and they leave? We hear that saying all the time. What if you invest in them and they leave? What if you don't invest in them and they stay? Right? That's even a worse problem. We want the smartest and the best trained people. That's the way to do it. So.
Yeah. And so number 5, just a small little thing we hear about every once in a while, capacity.
Oh, just a little one.
It is more pronounced than ever of just trying to get done what you need to get done. And sometimes people can go, I can't even think about growth because we can't find the people, we can't get. And so this is an opportunity to really, a time where we can figure out this capacity puzzle. But we have to look at it differently. It can't be just how do we hire more people and throw more people at it. It's got to be multi-pronged. Looking at, yes, your talent strategy is a big part of it, but so is outsourcing. So is how do you leverage technology and automation. Process improvement is a piece of it. And then finally, the growth item or lens is looking at your client base and how do I, first off, let's define what a right fit client is and define those clients that we wish we had only those in our portfolio. Define that, go get more of those, and then in growth trends we've got revenue replacement. That's another piece of this capacity puzzle. And so there's not just a silver bullet. You're going to have to take a multi-pronged approach to it. But firms are addressing this head on and having some success, and I think we're going to continue to see all of those angles on solving the capacity puzzle.
Yeah, I agree with you completely. I mean, capacity, it's not, if you could just give them a piece of paper and say, here, do this, and it'll solve all your capacity problems, it would be super easy, but it is not that easy. Every firm is different. Every problem that they come to the table with is a little different. So you have to really look at it like a puzzle and figure out all the different strategies you're going to use. So it's not just one thing, it's a whole bunch. And I don't think that one's going to go away. Which makes me think about, when you think about the 5 trends that we came up with for 2023, and then you look ahead at 2024, and you think about to yourself, which ones stay, what has emerged this year that maybe we should be talking about now before 24 gets here. What do you think? What's changed, and maybe what is something that you would add to the list? Is there anything?
Yeah. So what's changed? I think with the 5 that we have, they're still pretty solid.
Yeah.
But I will say there's nuances to them that I'll mention that I think is happening now and will continue to have an impact on the trends in 2024. One is just, it could fit into any of these 5, but there's a lot of uncertainty that we're having to lead through. And that is part of telling your story and having your vision. But the economy, what's going to happen there? And it kind of depends week to week what you see the news is.
Yeah.
Recession, no recession. Oh, the market's going gangbuster. Oh, the market's crashing.
Yeah.
So there is a lot of uncertainty there. In the M&A space, it's become a lot more complex.
Yeah.
There's private equity money coming in, and that is happening in more and more firms are choosing to go that route. And I will say private equity is not just one category. Private equity is not, those groups are not all the same.
Right.
Finding the right partner, the right strategy, if there is one that the firms that have gone down this path have said that's what we had to do. For the one we found, there were 10 that were like, no way this is going to work for our firm. And so, those are a couple things that I think are going to have impact. The other one I'll say that hits all 5 areas is a technology that's coming on fast. We hear about ChatGPT everywhere. But as from a leaders, we need to understand it.
Yeah.
And we need to be making sure that our organizations are having conversations about the opportunity and that our people are encouraged to use it in a safe way so that they have the basics of what it is and how it could be, because it's going to come quick. We need to be having conversations about the risks that are inherent to it, especially with the type of data we deal with. And I think we need to be talking about the ethical issues around artificial intelligence. And starting those now so that we're better prepared for when it does hit, that we're ready to hit the ground running and go. So just 3 things that I think are going to have a big impact on all 5 of those trends.
And in all cases, all I can sit here and think about was for all of you out there that are leaders, which by the way does not mean that's a title. That's who you are. Leaders are who we are, not the title that we hold. But in all cases, change leadership is what it all comes down to. Don't be so afraid of new things that are coming, like ChatGPT or private equity, all of that. Don't be so scared of it that you ignore it. Jump in and learn about it. The more educated you are, the better decisions you can make. So, all right. Anything else, Jim, before we close out today?
No, and since I made you open us, you want me to close us?
I would love it if you would close it.
Well, I just want to say thanks so much for listening today and joining us. If you enjoyed our topic, we release new episodes every Tuesday morning. And while we were really talking about leadership, you heard it today, it crosses over the 5 pillars of success. So we cover topics around talent, technology, process, and growth as well. The thing that's common among all of them is we're trying to help you be more successful and address a critical business issue in 20 minutes or less. So if you liked what you heard, please subscribe and join us for our next podcast. Thanks so much.